You were taught to prove yourself, to beg for time, attention, approval. But Machiavelli would never call that strength. He'd call it exposure. A man who begs has already surrendered the throne of perception. A woman who pleads has already crowned someone else with her self-worth. He who gives away power for validation, Machiavelli would say, has already lost both. The world doesn't respond to your words. It responds to what you withhold. The more you chase, the more you bleed, and those who taste your desperation will feed on it. This is not a video about becoming liked. It's a surgical blueprint for becoming untouchable. Your begging days end now. Asterisk. You were told to earn it, the love, the respect, the seat at the table, as if divinity could be negotiated, as if royalty could be achieved by rehearsal. But what if the game was never merit? What if it was myth? Machiavelli would not have whispered comfort. He would have laughed. He would have said, asterisk, the crown is not a reward. It is a signal of what you are willing to seize without apology. Asterisk, because when you try to earn what should be recognized on sight, you step off the throne and kneel before the court, and once they see you kneel, they will never again look up at you. We live in a world that trains you to overgive it, to apologize for your presence, audition for your own worth. It dresses this performance in noble language, humility, kindness, goodness. But Machiavelli saw through. I didn't write for saints, he wrote for rulers, and to him virtue without leverage was theater. You were not born to beg for your name to be remembered. You were not born to perform for tables that serve crumbs, because the truth is brutal. What you attempt to earn through desperation will never be respected. They will let you exhaust yourself and still never hand you the crown, because power is never gifted to the one who pleads. It is taken by the one who stops asking. To Machiavelli, begging was not just weakness, it was self-betrayal. It meant you'd already forgotten you were sovereign. You'd mistaken the opinions of others as your mirror and handed them the keys to your self-definition. And once you do that, you don't just lose their respect, you lose your own. Look at kings, look at queens. They do not explain, they do not justify, they never enter a room hoping to be liked. They arrive, and the room shifts because royalty is not proved, it is embodied. And that's the fracture inside you. You think you need to convince them, but Machiavelli would tell you, convincing is beneath a ruler. You either command or disappear. And this is the shift. You must move from please like me to you are fortunate to even witness me, because power is not the loudest voice in the room. It's the one that can walk away without a word and leave everyone behind, questioning their worth, not yours. The more you over-explain, the more they discount your value, the more you justify, the more they sense your insecurity, the more you chase, the more they run, because nothing repels like hunger and nothing seduces like detachment. This is psychological war, and in war, begging is suicide. The truth is harsh. No one gives you value. They reflect what you already broadcasts. So if you carry yourself like a servant of perception, you will always attract masters of manipulation. But if you carry yourself like fire, untouchable, unprovable, unwilling, you become something they must respect. Even if they cannot understand asterisk, you must stop bleeding for approval. You must stop waiting to be crowned, because here's the law Machiavelli lived by. The one who tries to earn the crown is already confessing they don't own it. Never prove never. Plead only rule. The world does not reward your effort, it rewards your asterisk perception of it. You've been told silence is passive, that those who do not speak have nothing to say. But Machiavelli knew better. He believed silence was the sharpest blade, one that cut without ever being seen, because silence is not emptiness, it is tension. It is strategy, it is control draped in stillness. When you beg, you are noise, obvious, predictable. You hand your soul over in syllables, hoping someone listens. But silence makes them listen harder. It forces the room to adjust to your absence. It carves uncertainty into their comfort, and uncertainty, as Machiavelli understood, is the mother of influence. When you are silent, they begin narrating themselves for you. Their mind fills the gaps with fear, guilt, longing. They replay what they said. They wonder what you're thinking, and in that wondering, you become the center of gravity to Machiavelli. This was not avoidance, it was dominance. He believed that the one who can sit in silence, watching, waiting, holding back, has already won half the war, because silence is not for the weak. It is for the calculating, for the one who knows that power is not about reacting but withholding. You see, most people speak to escape discomfort. They explain. They plead. They fill the air with apologies. But rulers create discomfort. They let the silence stretch until it suffocates the unprepared, and then, only when the silence has done its damage, do they strike. Machiavelli would say little, observe much, act only when necessary, because every unnecessary word is a weapon handed to your enemy. Every overreaction is a tell. Every explanation is a leak in your fortress. You cannot be a mystery if you are constantly narrating your fears, and you cannot command presence if you're trying to be understood. Understand this. Those who manipulate, who control, they rely on your need to speak. They wait for you to react. They feed on your explanations. They twist your words into weapons. But when you go silent, they lose control, because the mind cannot dominate what it cannot decode. Silence becomes a mirror. It reflects their guilt, their shame, their confusion, not your weakness. This is why the ones with the most power often say the least. They don't compete for attention. They let their absence generate obsession. They let others reveal their cards first, then strike with precision. To beg is to speak before you are ready. To silence is to wait until the world leans in. Let them wonder why you stopped replying. Let them question what it means when you don't explain. Let your lack of response become the loudest part of the room, because silence is not coldness, it is leverage. It is the space where power breathes. Machiavelli believed that mystery was a form of rule, not because it made you likable, but because it made you dangerous. You don't have to yell to be heard. You don't have to chase to be seen. You just have to know your value and trust that silence, when earned, is a symphony of consequence. And here is the principle. When you go quiet, their mind gets loud, and in that chaos, you rise. So hold your tongue, withdraw your energy, let the stillness do the speaking, and watch how fast the world begins to lean toward your shadow, not because you begged, but because you disappeared. You think you're chasing because you care, because you're loyal, because you just want closure. But no, you chase because something inside you was taught you are not enough as you are. You were programmed to believe that love, attention, and respect were rewards for perfect behavior, not your birthright. They told you, be kind, and they'll love you. Be patient, and they'll see your worth. Be available, and they'll choose you. But you were never told the full truth. You were never told that the world is built to exploit those who believe love must be earned. So you overgive, you over-explain, you justify yourself in every interaction. And when they walk away, you chase, but Machiavelli would see through it. He'd call it what it really is: emotional servitude, not love, not courage, not virtue, just unrecognized fear wrapped in performance. He knew that systems of power train the weak to believe they are noble when they suffer, because the more you chase, the less you see the chains tightening around your ankles. This is not affection, it's addiction. You became addicted to trying to win people who never valued you, because at some point in your past, you were taught that pain was the price of connection, that if you just give a little more, hurt a little longer, prove a little harder, you'll finally be seen. But Machiavelli didn't write strategies for the unseen. He wrote them for those who refused to be ignored. He didn't believe in waiting to be chosen. He believed in choosing who deserved access, and this is the psychological fracture beneath your chase. You think staying loyal to someone who overlooks you proves your worth. But what it really proves is that your self-worth is negotiable, that you're still trying to earn what should have been instinctively offered. You cannot lead with desperation and expect to be followed. You cannot beg for closeness and still be respected. Machiavelli would say, the one who fears loss has already been conquered, and that's the trap. You fear that if you stop chasing, you'll lose everything, but what you actually lose is far worse. You lose your center, you lose your edge, you lose your ability to choose. You become a beggar at the gates of your own identity. You can't be a strategist when you're starving. You can't play the long game when you're hunting breadcrumbs. You can't rise above the chaos if you're still chasing ghosts in it. The truth is hard. They never loved you more because you gave more. They just took more because you asked less. That's not connection. That's consumption. And still, some part of you calls it loyalty. Still, some voice inside says, this is how I prove I care. But care without boundaries is just self-erasure. Loyalty without reciprocity is just submission dressed in gold. You don't owe anyone your dignity. To prove your heart, you don't need to bleed to be seen. This is where Machiavelli rewires your head. Tell you, stop trying to be loved. Become the one they cannot afford to lose. And that shift, that cold, sacred shift, is everything, because once you stop performing, once you detach from the need to be chosen, you reclaim the throne you've been begging from. You don't become cold, you become calculated. You don't stop caring, you start caring. Strategically, you don't hate them, you just stop letting them hold your crown, and then you transform the same silence that once felt like death becomes a weapon. The same distance you feared becomes your fortress. The same love you used to chase now waits for your terms. You don't ask for peace anymore. You become the consequence of disturbing it, and when they return, because they always do, they won't meet the version of you that chased. They'll meet the version that disappeared and built an empire. This isn't bitterness, it's balance. This isn't revenge, it's realignment, because the chase ends when you realize you were never meant to run in the first place. You were meant to stand still and let the world adjust to your value. So here is the Machiavellian law: stop starving to be seen. Start becoming the one who disappears and is remembered. Let your distance speak louder than your devotion. Let your absence echo through the places you once begged to be noticed. You were not born to convince you, we're born to decide. You speak the word like it's a prayer, as if saying it enough will make them hand it to you. But Machiavelli would tell you, respect is not given, it is taken, or it is nothing at all. You do not receive respect because you are good. You do not receive it because you care. You receive it when the consequences of disrespect are too high to risk. This is the hard truth. Most people don't withhold respect because they're evil. They do it because they can, because you've shown them that. The cost of treating you poorly is nothing, no punishment, no boundary, no exit, just more patience, more understanding, more begging, and so they feed, not because you're weak, but because you keep acting like your value needs a permission slip. But Machiavelli believed in boundaries, written in stone, not tears. He believed in fear with precision, not chaos. He knew that love was negotiable, but respect must be enforced, because once you ask for better treatment, you're already underpaid in emotional currency. When you have to explain why you deserve dignity, you've already revealed that you believe it can be debated. You become a salesman of your own worth, and the more you sell, the more they doubt. What you tolerate becomes your identity. What you walk away from becomes your power. There is no almost in self-respect. There is no maybe in sovereignty. You either charge interest on every ounce of energy they take, or they treat you like you come free. And here's the Machiavellian angle they never taught you. Silence, followed by absence, is worth more than 1,000 explanations. You don't raise your voice. You lower your availability. You don't beg them to understand. You let them live without you, and when you do, the tables turn, because now your respect is not a gift. It's a price, and only the ones willing to pay it get access. This is not cruelty, it's calibration. You are not obligated to explain your value to anyone who can't already see it. You are not required to fight for basic consideration. That's the trap. They made you believe that requesting respect was virtuous, but Machiavelli would say, every plea for dignity teaches others how to dismiss you. Power does not beg to be honored. Power decides who is worthy of its time, its silence, its closeness, and when you shift from explanation to exit, they learn, not because you told them, because you taught them with your absence. Respect is not a compliment. It's a cost, and if they're not paying, you're the one funding your own mistreatment. So, here's the law. Stop asking for what you're willing to walk away from. Set your value in silence, and let your absence be the tax for their ignorance. Respect is not a gift, it's a mirror, and it always reflects what you are willing to refuse. Need is a scent. You may not say it out loud, but they can smell it on you. You speak kindly, but your eyes are starving. You stay silent, but your presence begs. You say, I'm fine, but everything in you aches to be chosen. To Machiavelli, this was the fatal flaw, not in your heart, but in your posture, because every need you reveal becomes a weapon, and every weapon handed over becomes an invitation to be conquered. You are not hated because you care. You are dismissed because you need. Is gravity in reverse. It doesn't pull people in, it pushes them away. King does not confess what he craves. A ruler does not reveal what keeps him awake at night, because in war, vulnerability is not endearing. It is a map to your destruction. Machiavelli believed the man who needs nothing cannot be governed. And that's the root of it. Need is the leash, and most people aren't interested in loving you. They're interested in leashing you. The more you expose, the more you leak. The more you leak, the more they aim. So you think the solution is to hide, to shut down, to go numb. But that's not sovereignty either, that's not strategy, that's self-erasure in disguise, the real power. Not to suppress need, but to kill it. Stand before the world not empty, but full, so full in fact, that nothing outside of you defines you anymore. When you stop needing their love, you can finally see who deserves yours. When you stop needing their praise, you can finally move without chains. This is not coldness, this is clarity, and it starts with a ritual of reversal. You stop asking, "What can I do to be enough for them?" And you start asking, "Are they even qualified to sit in my presence?" You see, begging is born in the shadow of need, and royalty cannot grow in shadows. You must unlearn the belief that says your hunger makes you worthy. You must destroy the instinct that says your longing is beautiful, because need is not a flaw, it's a signal that someone else is holding the crown you were meant to wear. You were told to be open, to be honest, to be raw, but Machiavelli would raise an eyebrow. He'd say, "Reveal nothing unless it serves the throne." And that's the strategy. Replace emotional need with strategic preference, not because you're manipulative, but because you finally understand that every expression of need is a lever, and once they pull it, you're no longer the one steering the war. So kill the part of you that chases, kill the dog that runs after scraps, kill the child in you that still thinks proving is earning, and in its place, build the wolf, the one who waits, the one who watches, the one who does not hunger in front of prey. You are not a machine, but you are no longer a puppet either. You feel deeply, but not recklessly. You love, but not on command. You connect, but not because you have to. This is the throne. When you master your appetite, you master the room. The ones who cannot walk away cannot lead. The ones who cannot live without validation cannot be feared. And in a world built on social currency, your lack of need becomes the highest value of all. You do not chase the stage. You become the spotlight they can't avoid. You do not beg for their time. You exist in such rare air that your attention becomes oxygen, and those who once toyed with you now tiptoe around your silence, because they know once you stopped needing them, they stopped owning you. Machiavelli wrote for rulers who ruled themselves first. So here is the law. Eliminate the hunger, and you eliminate the hook. Kill the need, build the throne, and when you rise, rise empty. So no one can ever use your cravings to pull you back down. Let your silence be full. Let your presence be sovereign, and let your kingdom begin where your needs end. Presence is power, but absence is obsession. You were told that disappearing means defeat, that stepping back is surrender. But Machiavelli would tell you the opposite. He would say, the ruler who vanishes on his own terms does not lose power, he multiplies it. Because the mind cannot crave what it fully possesses. It only obsesses over what slipped through its fingers. The power, he multiplies it. Because the mind cannot crave what it fully possesses. It only obsesses over what slipped through its fingers. The key art of strategic absence is not escape, it is invasion, psychological invasion, to leave at your peak, to vanish when they expect your warmth, to step into shadow before they've prepared for the cold. That is the kind of silence that haunts, because now they don't just remember you. They replay you, frame by frame, word by word. When you are always available, you become background noise. But when you remove yourself with precision, you become a vacuum, and in that vacuum, they start to see your value not by your presence, But by the emptiness you left behind, Machiavelli understood that proximity breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds disrespect when you are always near. You are always taken for granted, but when you disappear, without fanfare, without warning, you create scarcity, and scarcity breeds demand, and demand, when controlled, becomes domination. You must stop thinking that constant connection earns affection, that being there proves your worth. It doesn't. Being there constantly only proves one thing: that they can waste you and you'll stay. But absence, that changes everything. Absence rewrites the power dynamic. It forces them to feel your weight through the void, and that void becomes your throne. This is not about pettiness. This is about positioning. When you remove yourself, you trigger introspection in others. You become the unanswered question, the unresolved feeling, the what did I do? The why did they stop? And in their confusion, you ascend, because nothing controls the mind like an unfinished story. And your exit done right is an unsolvable riddle. Strategic absence is not running away, it's retreating to power. It's stepping off the stage while the applause is loudest, so they keep clapping even when you're gone. Machiavelli believed in the power of disappearing at the moment of highest leverage, to remind them that your presence was earned, never owned. You don't need to explain your withdrawal. You don't owe a final word. You simply fade, and let your silence deepen the impact of every moment that came before it, because those who need closure are trying to regain control, and those who provide it are often giving their power away one last time. Give them closure. Give them consequence. Strategic absence is not about ghosting. It's about ghosting with purpose. It's not silence as avoidance. It's silence as signal. A signal that says, I was never yours to consume. I appear where I am valued. And when I vanish, it is because your access expired. Let them sit with that expiration, and if they return, make sure they return to a gate they can no longer pass through without cost, because access, once abused, should never be free again. This is the shift from fear of abandonment to weaponized disappearance. You are not afraid to leave. You are ready to leave before they even realize they've begun to lose. You, Machiavelli would say, control begins when your absence has more impact than your presence ever did. That is the standard. That is the strategies. So here is the law. Your withdrawal should feel like exile, not because you punished them, but because your presence was that powerful. Go quiet. Go dark. Go sovereign. Let the room echo with what it lost. Let your name become a question that never finds its answer, because power is not proven when you stay, it is crowned when you leave. And they still feel you. They made you believe your presence was negotiable, something to be offered in pieces, something to be bargained, debated, persuaded. But Machiavelli would remind you, the prince does not ask to be received, he decides who is worthy of the throne. Room, your presence is not a request, it is a reward. You don't knock at their door hoping to be let in, you are the gate. You are the room. You are the terms every time you treat yourself like a guest in someone else's life. You forget that you were born the architect of your own you. Bend you dim. You adjust your volume so they feel tall, but in doing so, you sell your presence for pennies, and once they've bought it cheap, they never value it again. You see, when your presence is a bargaining chip, they'll gamble with it. They'll push limits, they'll play games, because you've taught them your access comes with no price, no pause, no power. But when your presence is a privilege, everything changes. Are not cold. You're curated. You don't withhold. You assess. Not everyone gets to know you. Not everyone deserves your time. Not everyone can enter the palace just because they're heir. Knocking. Machiavelli understood. Proximity to power is the ultimate incentive. It creates obedience, desire, reverence, not because the ruler demands it, but because the space between appearances speaks louder than words. You teach them how to treat you by what you require for access, and if you cost nothing, you mean nothing. This isn't ego, it's economics. Human attention is a currency, and yours should never be traded for temporary validation. You've walked into rooms that did not deserve you. You've stayed at tables that made you shrink. You've begged to be understood by people who profit from misunderstanding you. But now, the negotiations end. You are not the applicant. You are the opportunity. You do not chase energy. You generate it. This is your turning point. You stop entering spaces just to prove you belong. You let spaces earn the right to hold you. When you make your presence scarce, you increase its value. When you show up less, you are seen more. And those who once dismissed you, they will notice the silence. They will feel the absence because they've forgotten something vital. You didn't need them. They needed your presence to feel important. Let them remember. Let them sit with the fact that you are not just another warm body in a cold world. You are the fire. You are the storm. You are the moment they never appreciated until it was gone. Machiavelli would say, to be respected, appear rarely but with impact. So here is the law. Make your presence the prize, not the plea, and never again offer your energy to those who mistake royalty for convenience. You are not here to be chosen. You are here to choose. There is no dignity in asking for what should have been given freely. There is no honor in being seen only when you scream. There is no power in begging. You tried, you explained. You bled reason into people who chose ignorance like a crown. And all it did was teach them where to strike. Machiavelli would not comfort you here. He would sharpen you. He would say, a ruler who pleads with his enemies teaches them how to strike. Because the moment you beg, they learn they can win. The moment you chase, they learn you've already lost. You don't need to be liked. You need to be uncheckable. You don't need to be chosen. You need to choose who gets access. Power begins with silence. It grows through absence. And it reigns when you no longer explain why you walked away. You just never return. Let them wonder. Let them feel what it's like to be exiled from your energy. Let them remember your presence only after it's become a ghost they can't stop chasing. This is not about bitterness. It's about balance. This is not revenge. It's repositioning. You no longer orbit anyone. You no longer perform for scraps. You are not here to convince. You are here to command through what you withhold, through what you no longer explain, through what you will never beg for again. Let your silence say what your words never could. Let your absence burn louder than apology ever did, because the most Machiavellian move you can make is not to fight harder for respect, but to disappear and let the world remember what it lost.